This series is written chronologically. If you are new to the series, you must start at Season 1, Episode 1. Thank you. The Blood-Drawn Chronicles, Season 12, Winds of a Welcomed Winter, was written by Michael Bradley and produced by DigiFox Studios, was brought to you in part thanks to the generous contribution of our patrons, William Wibbins and Zoe Robinson. Thank you, William and Zoe, for your generous donation. We'd like to take this time to thank you, the listener, for all your ongoing love and support during the making of this series. It has been a privilege for us to make this show. And now that we've come to closing with this final season, we want to say, what a journey it has been. Stay tuned after the show for a very special message. We'd also like to take this time to thank Lord Saunders from www.lordsaunders.com for the wonderful audio mastering of the episode you are about to enjoy. As always, thank you for listening. And now, our story continues.
So let me get this straight. You and Alana are linked in matrimony thanks to an ancient spell that was found on the cylinder?
Something like that, yes.
Okay, care to elaborate?
The greatest sacrifice one can ever offer is the surrender of one's heart entirely. That is what I had to surrender in order to open the cylinder. It's quite ingenious when you stop to think about it.
How do you mean?
As Diophilus put it, the spell was never placed on the Hylifix in order to marry Valpyr with Elf. The spell was placed to prevent the cylinder from ever being opened.
And why would you even need such a spell?
Because a Hylifix is more of a strong box than a prison, which means that it requires combination to both open and close. Both entrapment and release spells must be present on the cylinder for it to work.
So knowing this, Dominicus knew that Alana's cylinder could be opened by anyone.
Precisely.
Which is why he transferred her from her original cylinder to the one he created, which he made more secure by adding a caveat to the opening spell.
By shedding my blood on the Hylifix, I surrendered my heart to Alana, and it freed her.
But she never surrendered her heart to you.
But she did. By locking lips for the first time, Alana completed the spell by surrendering her heart to me.
Classic first kiss love spell. So cliché.
Wasn't it you who said that was the best way to write a story?
I said clichés were your best friend when writing a story, yes, but never the ending. To have a truly wonderful story, your ending must be as unique and as unexpected as possible. I must admit, though, you've gotten yourself into quite a unique situation.
Had I known the cost it would have taken to open the Hylifix, I would have never opened it.
No sense looking back now.
It was the perfect spell to keep it sealed. No Valpyr would ever unlock any treasure at such a price. My haste and ignorance of the full story at the time led me to do it. From the time I was given the vials by the High Priest to the moment you handed me the cylinder, I had not changed. I was still as brash, irrational, and impulsive as the day Maya sent me to Heaves.
And now look at you. Finally, you're able to sit back, enjoy a nice cup of tea outside a wonderfully sunny day, and simply relax. Oh, what's wrong?
In truth?
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Sometimes I think to myself, had I not been spellbound to love Alana, would I have put up with her the way I did? Until she kissed me, she was free of her own opinions and emotions. But I was a slave to my heart, which I so willingly handed her. I love her, but would I have loved her if I was the Myrick I was before I shed my blood on the Hylifix? Would I have been so tolerant? Would I have been so compassionate? would she have seemed as wonderful as how she seems to me now? What would...
Have you ever heard the story of the fisherman's tale?
No.
Well, then you're in for a treat. You see, long ago in the town of Gali, there lived a simple fisherman. Every morning, he'd wake up extra early to prep his boat and head to the sea to catch the day's earnings, just as his father did and his father before him. And every day when returning from his boat and setting post in the marketplace, he would envy the rich who passed by his post. Why did I have to be born the son of a fisherman? He asked God. Only knowing fish, he continued doing what he did every day, until one day, when fishing in his usual spot, he heard the sounds of a man calling for help. Not far from him, a man was drowning. Quickly the fisherman rushed to save him, took the man to his home, dried the stranger's clothes, and even fed him. To which the stranger said to him upon tasting his fish, "This fish you cooked is the greatest thing to ever touch my tongue. I'd gladly empty my purse just for another serving." Until now, the fisherman had only sold what he caught at the end of the day. The thought of selling cooked fish had never crossed him. "Thank you, God," he said as he set his post the next day with freshly cooked fish. The smell attracted many, and in no time at all money was pouring in. "Thank you, God," he said again as his riches continued. One day the richest man in town came to see him with an offer. He had heard of the fisherman's amazingly cooked fish and hired him to cater his daughter's wedding. All of the richest men in the land would be attending. "Thank you, God," he said as he catered the wedding. In no time at all, the rich guests loved what they tasted and had him cater their parties as well. He came to cook only for the rich, and by now had all the money he could ever spend. "Thank you, God," he said as his fortune saw no end. He grew so rich and so popular that the king of the land himself invited the fisherman to cook for him. "Thank you, God," he said as he looked for the perfect fish to serve the king. He had his personal fishermen search the sea high and low for the perfect fish until they found it, the tastiest fish in the land. If cooked properly, no other fish could rival its flavor, but there was a catch. This particular fish was very poisonous. If not cooked properly, it could kill the king. This scared many fishermen trying, but our fishermen, no. Our fishermen came from generations of fishermen. Cooking this fish would be no contest for our fishermen. And so he did. With all the confidence in the world, our fishermen cooked that fish to perfection in the royal kitchen. All was well and proper, or so it seemed. For unbeknownst to our fishermen, the king's son hated his father and was looking for the perfect opportunity to end him. And realizing the type of fish the fisherman was cooking, he re-poisoned it while no one was looking, as it sat on the kitchen table ready to be served to the king. And served it was. One bite had the king moaning in contentment. "Thank you, God," said the fisherman once more, as he saw the king's face after the first bite. But little did he know the king would never take a second bite. For seconds after his first, he died, vomiting poison. They imprisoned the fisherman for poisoning the king. While in his cell, he prayed, "God, oh God, please don't let them kill me. I knew I cooked the fish right. I just know it." All night he prayed hard, but it did him no good. By morning, the prince had decreed that the fisherman would die for the murder of his father, and so it was. And when the fisherman heard the news of his execution, he said, "God, oh God, why did you ever make me a fisherman?" The end. Did we get the moral of the story?
No regrets.
No regrets, no looking back. Life is what it is. Everything happens for a reason. You can ask yourself 1,000,000 times, why? Or you can just accept the fact that that's life. It hits you like a storm. You wash up on a rock, looking for the storm to clear so you can make your way off. But the storm never clears. It only hits you harder and harder each time you stare at it. Many say you become a man by standing through the storm every time it hits harder and yelling, "Do your worst." And it may be true for mortals, but we, Myrick, we live forever. And because of this, we fight the storm forever, which makes us who we are. It makes us strong. The downside to this is that we don't know a world without black clouds. And so when the sun finally hits, we fear it now. It is a stranger to us, and so we do not do what other men would. We do not see our opportunity to get off the rock. Instead, we stand on that rock and wait for the sun to pass, using that time to carefully plan for the next storm. You're off your rock now, Myrick. There's no going back, so don't go looking for a way.
Time passes as we continue to sit outside in the courtyard, as I process the advice of a far better man than I. Once ready to converse, I compose myself to speak. Yet as I do, I am interrupted, as she comes from behind me and says,
"Well, I hope you two gentlemen had your fill of chit-chat for the day."
Day, yes, but when night comes, which is soon here, you can expect me to have room for seconds.
Fair enough, but you won't be doing it here.
Oh, and why not?
Alana's having a baby, and I've just been made his godmother.
Godmother?
Yes, godmother.
I look at her, confused by the meaning of the word, to which she gives no answer and simply says,
Well, don't just sit there and stare at me like that. Up, you two. We're celebrating. Now, I already talked to Alana, and she agreed. We're leaving first thing tomorrow morning.
Leaving where?
To celebrate, Myrick. And what better way to celebrate your having a baby in my godmotherhood than with a nice boat ride on the lake, followed by a perfect little picnic in the fresh meadows, and at night... at night.
What happens at night?
What do you think, Woodrow?
Wrong person to ask. In my experience, that's usually when all the freaks come out.
That they do, Mr. Carley.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please feel free to check out our other productions at www.foxplaybox.com. Also, check out the podcast series from Doc Ouija titled One from the Vaults Podcast at www.onefromthevaultspodcast.com. If you love a good horror story, then this podcast might just be what you're looking for. This has been Myrick Myerson and Nelson Ventura saying thank you for allowing us the opportunity to entertain you. We'll see you again in the next chronicle in the blood-drawn series titled The Black-Hearted Mr. White, coming later this year, 2018. Thank you, and good night.